A sudden fire trapped me inside a smoke-choked office. Trapped alongside me was Lila Monroe, my husband Ethan Hayes' secretary, who always acted delicate and helpless. When Ethan burst in, he held only one damp towel. Without a second thought, he pressed it over Lila's mouth and nose. Then lifted her up in his arms. 8 months pregnant. I leaned shakily against the wall and stretched out a hand toward him. Ethan, take me with you. Instead, he slammed the thick solid wood office door shut behind him. Layla has asthma. She can't stand the smoke. You're pregnant, then tough enough. Wait for the next rescue team. A soft click echoed as he locked the door from the outside. I was completely cut off from any chance of escape. In that moment, the anger burning in my heart raged hotter than the flames all around me. Thick smoke coiled like countless black hands, clamping tight around my throat. Sharp, heavy pains tugged at my belly again and again. My unborn baby could feel my despair. Kicking wildly inside me, I slid down against the door, staring through the crack as Ethan carried Lila and ran away. That figure had once been my strongest pillar in the world. Now he was the one leading me straight to hell. Ethan, I croaked. I inhaled a lungful of scorching smoke, and every breath felt like being stabbed by thousands of steel needles. From outside the door, Lila's weak voice rang out clearly. Ethan, your wife is still inside. Cough. You have to go save her. Right after that, Ethan's sharp, irritated roar cut through the haze. Quiet. Save your breath. She's tough as nails. She even won a marathon 5 years ago. This smoke won't kill her. Your lungs are fragile. What if your asthma flares up? Tough as nails. Marathon runner. That was the old me. 5 years ago. Now I was 8 months pregnant. My legs swollen so badly I could barely walk. How could he believe I could survive in this blazing inferno just because I had stamina? Another click. The lock fully engaged. To stop the fire from spreading, he had bolted the fire door from the outside. This was a high-grade office building, once locked externally. The door could never be opened from within without a key. He meant to trap the fire inside, and he meant to trap me with it. Waves of searing heat washed over me. A bookshelf behind me crashed to the ground, and fire tongues lapped at the hem of my dress. I banged frantically on the door, my fingernails scraping raw against the scorching wood until they bled. Open the door. Ethan, open up. I'm carrying your child. Somebody help me. No one answered. Footsteps faded down the hallway, mixed with Lila's feigned sobs. My vision began to blur. I slumped to the floor, hands clutching tightly over my belly. I'm sorry, my baby. Mommy might not be able to protect you. I thought I would burn alive. Until a deafening bang split the air. The heavy door was hacked open with brute force. A beam of bright light cut through the darkness. Firefighters wielding axes. Strong arms lifted me up. Fresh air flooded my burning lungs, and I broke into violent coughs, spitting out black soot. We've got a victim. A pregnant woman. Bring a stretcher fast. They carried me toward the exit. As we passed the emergency corridor, I glanced down toward the open courtyard below. Ethan was kneeling on the ground, carefully holding a water cup to Lila's lips. She was wrapped in his suit jacket, her face barely smudged with ash. She buried her head against his chest, trembling. Ethan stroked her back gently, his eyes filled with heartache as he wiped away a single bead of sweat on her forehead. Ambulance and police sirens wailed all around them, filling the air with chaos. Yet the two of them looked as if they were in a romantic drama, gazing into each other's eyes. I was so scared. Ethan. Don't worry, I'm here. No one will hurt you. I lay on the stretcher, less than 10 meters away. As they wheeled me toward an ambulance, Ethan never glanced my way. He did not even ask if Chloe had made it out alive. Agony exploded in my abdomen. Warm liquid trickled down my thighs. My water had broken. I gripped the nurse's hand so hard my knuckles turned white. And I spoke with my last ounce of strength. Don't tell him. Don't tell that monster. Patient is hemorrhaging badly. Hurry. Get her to the nearest hospital. The ambulance doors slammed shut. Through the window, I saw Lila lift her head over Ethan's shoulder. She looked straight at me and wore a wicked, triumphant smile. Chapter 2. The antiseptic stench of the hospital burned my nose worse than the smoke from the fire. I woke up in a hospital bed, every inch of my body throbbing with pain. My throat felt like I'd swallowed shards of glass, and every breath tasted of iron. Even the smallest movement sent tearing pain shooting through my lower body. "You're awake." A nurse stood beside my bed changing my dressings. Her gaze laced with pity. "You're incredibly lucky. Your baby was born prematurely, but it's stable in the incubator. You've got severe smoke inhalation injuries though, so you'll need plenty of rest." The baby was alive. Tears welled up in my eyes the second relief washed over me. "Thank you. Thank you so much." My voice was hoarse and raspy. The nurse sighed, glancing toward the doorway hesitantly. "We need to contact your next of kin. Firefighters brought you in, and we had to get emergency approval for your surgery. Where is your husband?" "My husband, the man who locked me inside a burning room." I closed my eyes and let out a cold laugh. "He's dead." The nurse froze. "Excuse me," I said. "My husband is dead." My phone, recovered from the fire and placed on the nightstand, vibrated. The screen was cracked, but it still worked. I picked it up and saw a new message, sent from the contact labeled husband. The words were cold and unfeeling. "Lila's terrified and having heart trouble. I'm staying with her for tests. Get a taxi home and stop being dramatic." The message had arrived 2 hours prior while I was bleeding out on the operating table, fighting for my life. He had no idea I was in the hospital. He assumed I had simply taken a cab home. Before I could reply, another message popped up. This one from Lila. It was a photo. In the picture, Ethan was carefully placing a band-aid over a tiny red mark on Lila's finger. Not even a scratch that drew blood. Her caption read, "I'm so sorry, Chloe. Ethan insisted I get a full checkup. He said you're tough. You used to practice kickboxing, so you'll be fine. I hope you won't be mad at me." The last flicker of warmth inside me died completely. Tough. Kickboxing. That was how he saw me. Because I was strong, I deserved to be abandoned. Because she was fragile, a tiny red mark on her finger mattered more than my life. My hands shook as I dialed Ethan's number. The phone rang, and he finally answered right before it went to voicemail. His tone was sharp and impatient, and I could hear Lila's coquettish murmurs in the background. "Chloe, what is your problem? I told you to go home. Lila's still shaken and needs rest. Can't you stop calling and bothering us?" Bothering him. I lay in a hospital bed covered in 4 lines, fresh from the brink of death, and he thought I was harassing him. "Ethan." I forced my voice steady despite my trembling. "I'm at Central City General Hospital." There was a short pause on the line, followed by a mocking scoff. "Central City General. Chloe, you'll make up any lie just to get me to come home, won't you? You were right by the exit during the fire. There's no way you got hurt. I'm telling you the truth. I'm here." "Enough." Ethan cut me off, his voice thick with disgust. "Keep up this silly act if you want. Lila's still on oxygen from the smoke, and I don't have time for your cry-wolf games. I won't be home tonight. Go think about your behavior." The line went dead. I stared at the phone, then laughed until tears streamed down my face, bitter and salty on my lips. This was the man I had loved for 7 years. The man I'd risked everything to have a child with. If he wanted me to reflect on my choices, then I would. I wiped my tears, turned on the phone's voice recorder, and pulled up Lila's photo. Then I dialed 911. "Hello, 911. I need to report a crime. My husband is guilty of attempted murder." Chapter 3. I remained eerily calm while the police took my report. Even I was surprised by how composed I was. I described every detail of the fire, emphasizing that Ethan had locked the door while I was still trapped inside. "Officer, I can't be certain if he intended to kill me, but he definitely bolted the door. Look at my injured throat. If the firefighters hadn't broken in, I would be dead right now." The female officer taking notes looked at my wounds, her expression a mix of sympathy and anger. "Ms. Bennett, rest assured we will pull the surveillance footage and examine the lock for evidence. If your account is true, this is far more than a domestic dispute, it's a criminal case." After the police left, I lay staring at the ceiling, my body throbbing with pain that kept me awake. It was noon the next day when the hospital room door was thrown open violently. Ethan rushed inside, carrying a thermos. His face was clouded with anger, mixed with the arrogant air of someone doing me a favor. "Chloe, When will this end? He slammed the thermos down on the nightstand with a loud thud. The police just called me about an attempted murder charge. Have you lost your mind? He stared at me like I was an unreasonable troublemaker, completely ignoring my pale complexion and the 4 lines stuck in my hand. I said nothing, simply watching him, the well-dressed man with a heart as cold as ice. Silence made him assume I was guilty. He straightened his tie, his tone softening slightly, though his condescension never faded. I know you're shaken up and upset. Lila got up early to make you chicken soup. She's still unwell herself, yet she thought of you. Don't be ungrateful. He opened the thermos, releasing a thick, greasy smell. Layla said I acted too rashly and left you behind yesterday, but it was an emergency. You know she has asthma. You're the older one, can't you cut her some slack? Cut her some slack. When did I gain a murderous younger sister? Ethan, I spoke at last, my voice scraping like sandpaper. Where is our baby? Ethan froze, finally noticing my flat stomach. Panic flashed across his face for a split second before he masked it again. You gave birth. So quickly. Boy or girl? He never asked if the baby was healthy, never asked how much pain I'd endured. His first thought was the child's gender. The baby is in the incubator. I nodded toward the door. Don't you want to see them? Relief washed over his features, and his expression turned indifferent once more. It's fine as long as the baby's okay. There's no point staring at an incubator. We'll hold the baby in a few days. Also, go drop the police charges and tell them this was just a marital misunderstanding. A scandal will tank Hayes Corporation's stock. He pulled a bank card from his pocket and tossed it onto my blanket. There's $500,000 here. Buy yourself a nice bag or whatever you want. Stop pulling these stunts. My patience is wearing thin. I stared at the card as if it were filth. Ethan, do you truly believe this was just a misunderstanding? I lifted my head and locked eyes with him. What were you thinking when you locked that door? His gaze flickered, and he flew into a rage. It was an instinctive habit. I didn't think you'd get stuck. You're alive now. The baby's alive. What more do you want? I came here with soup to make peace, and you push your luck too far. Chloe. I grabbed the thermos and hurled it to the floor with every ounce of strength I had left. Hot chicken soup splattered everywhere, grease staining his expensive suit trousers. Get out. I pointed to the door, enunciating every word clearly. Take your soup and leave. Ethan stared at me in disbelief, as if seeing me for the first time. Once, I had cooked for him every day, turned down promotions for him, and endured all his mistakes with red-rimmed eyes. I had never exploded like this before. Fine, just fine. He laughed bitterly, jabbing a finger at me. You'll regret this. He spun on his heel and slammed the door. Through the crack, I heard him answer his phone, his voice instantly soft and tender. Hey, Layla, what's wrong? Your chest hurts again. Don't worry, I'm on my way. I closed my eyes, and tears poured down my cheeks. Regret. The only regret I had was falling for a monster like him 5 years ago. A nurse rushed in a moment later, her face ashen. Ms. Bennett, the baby in the incubator is suffering from respiratory failure and needs emergency surgery immediately. We need a family member to sign the consent form right away. Where is your husband? I struggled to sit up, ignoring the searing pain in my body, and grabbed her arm. He left. I'll sign it myself. That's not possible. The surgery carries major risks. We need an immediate family member present. Preferably the father may need a blood transfusion. My hands shaking, I dialed Ethan's number again. He declined the call instantly. I dialed once more. His phone was turned off. I flooded his messages with please. The baby is dying. They need emergency surgery. Answer your phone. Ethan, please, answer me. Our baby is dying. 5 minutes later, a voice note arrived from Lila. Loud music and cheering filled the background, and her voice was slurred with alcohol and triumph. Chloe, we're at my celebration party right now. Ethan's cutting my cake. He said he doesn't want to read your nasty lies, so he turned his phone off. Stop with the fake drama. Using a baby to curse people will bring you bad luck. A video followed. In the footage, Ethan stood with his hands over Lila's as they cut into a towering multi-layered cake. He wore a bright, indulgent smile, while my baby fought for life in the ER. The two of them celebrated happily, Chapter 4. In the video, Ethan leaned down and whispered something in Lila's ear, making her giggle and playfully swat at his chest. The sight cut into me like a poisoned blade. Ms. Bennett. Hurry. The baby's oxygen levels have dropped to 60. The nurse's urgent words sounded like a death knell. I dropped my phone and stumbled out of bed. My legs buckled, and I crashed to my knees on the hard tile floor. The pain in my knees was nothing compared to the agony in my heart. I'll sign it. I picked up the pen, but my hands trembled so badly I could barely grip it. The thin paper of the surgery consent form felt heavier than lead. Also, we need to prepare blood for transfusion. A doctor ran out, sweat dripping from under his mask. The baby has negative blood, and the hospital blood bank is depleted. Is the father a match? We need him here to donate blood immediately. Negative blood. I was type O, and Ethan had negative blood. Our child had inherited his rare blood type. Despair crashed over me like a tidal wave. Only Ethan could save our baby. I sent frantic messages to his dead phone. Ethan, the baby has negative blood. There's no blood left in the bank. Only you can save them. Please come to the hospital. I'll drop all charges. I'll apologize to Lila. I'll leave. Just come, please. This is your son. No reply. The video looped on my phone, showing Ethan feeding cake to Lila, mocking my helpless desperation. We're out of time, the doctor shouted. Administer replacement plasma. Move the baby to surgery now. The ER doors slammed shut, and the red warning light above them flickered on, staring down at me coldly. I collapsed on the hallway floor, clutching an unfinished draft of divorce papers in my hand. When grief is too deep, you cannot cry. You only feel endless emptiness. 30 minutes later, the click of high heels echoed down the hallway. It was not Ethan. It was Lila. She still wore the red evening gown from the party, a blazing color that burned my eyes. She twirled Ethan's phone between her fingers as she stood over me. Why are you sitting on the cold floor, Chloe? She looked down at me with the smug grin of a victor. Ethan passed out drunk in the car. I saw all your frantic messages about blood and deathery quite frightening. So I came to check on you. She bent down and whispered in a voice only I could hear. He's not drunk at all. He just refused to see you. He read every message you sent, he said. A cruel smile spread across her face. If the baby dies, it's for the best. It'll just grow up to be another troublemaker like you. The last thread holding my sanity snapped. The ER light turned off. The doctor stepped out and pulled down his mask, shaking his head solemnly. We did everything we could. The baby suffered severe oxygen deprivation and blood loss. We couldn't save them. Time of death, 9:43 p.m. 9:43 p.m. The exact moment Ethan cut the cake with Lila. My world crumbled into ash. Lila gasped in fake shock. Oh no. They really died. Ethan will be heartbroken. Though he did say he never wanted the baby anyway. I slowly pushed myself to my feet. All the blood seemed to drain from my body, replaced by scorching rage. I stared at Lila's fake, innocent face, then at the doctor's regretful expression, then at the door leading to the morgue. I did not cry. I smiled a stiff, hollow smile that made Lila step back in fear. Chloe, don't scare me. I have a heart condition. I pulled the crumpled divorce paper draft from my pocket and tore it into tiny pieces, tossing the shreds into the air. White scraps drifted down like funeral confetti, landing all over her expensive red gown. Go back and tell Ethan. My voice was soft, cold. Each word ground between my teeth. Divorce is too kind for him. I will make him pay with his life for our baby. Chapter 5. Layla stumbled backward, her high heels slipping. She quickly regained her balance, disdain flashing in her eyes. Pay with his life. Have you lost your mind? What can you possibly do to Ethan? Looking like a broken wreck. She brushed paper scraps off her dress with a look of disgust. Ethan said if you behave and step aside, he'll give you enough money to live comfortably for the rest of your life. Keep acting crazy, and he'll have you committed to a psychiatric hospital. A psychiatric hospital. That was the fate he had planned for me. I ignored her and turned to the doctor, my tone eerily calm. Please prepare a death certificate for me. I want to see my baby one last time. The doctor nodded sympathetically. Lila huffed. Enjoy your grief. I'll tell Ethan you cursed your own child to death. She turned and left. The sharp click of her heels sounding like a funeral march for my past life. The morgue was freezing cold. My tiny baby lay on the metal slab, skin blue and limp, curled up like an abandoned doll. They had never opened their eyes to see the world. Never met their cruel father. I reached out and stroked their cold cheek. My tears had long since run dry, leaving only burning hatred in their place. Rest easy, my love. I pressed a gentle kiss to their forehead. Mommy won't let your death be forgotten. Everyone who hurt you will pay. I walked out of the morgue and dialed a number I had not called in years. The line connected on the first ring. A deep, steady male voice spoke, thick with shock and relief. Chloe, is that really you? Brother. My throat tightened. 5 years ago, I had cut off all contact with my family to marry Ethan. Turning my back on my life as the Bennett heiress. I had once believed love could conquer everything. I had been a fool. It's me. I drew a deep breath, my resolve hardening. I want to come home. There was a brief silence on the line, followed by the crash of a chair and hurried footsteps. Where are you? I'll come get you right away. Did that bastard Ethan hurt you? I always knew he was no good. Bring our top legal team. I stared out at the pitch-black night, speaking slowly and firmly. I'm going to take Hayes Corporation away from him before this month ends. It will belong to the Bennetts. Ethan finally arrived at the hospital the next morning. Sober at last, most likely after Lila twisted the story to her advantage. He walked into the empty hospital room, and his face darkened instantly. A nurse entered to clean the room. Ethan grabbed her arm roughly. Where is she? The nurse pulled her arm free. Glaring at him, she checked out. Checked out. What about the baby? How could she leave the baby? Ethan pulled out his phone and tried to call me, but my line was dead. The baby. The nurse's gaze turned to pure contempt. The baby was cremated last night. Ms. Bennett took the ashes with her. Ethan froze. His phone slipped from his hand and clattered to the floor. What did you say? Cremated. The baby was fine yesterday. How could this happen? Fine. The nurse could no longer hold back her anger. Where were you when the baby fought for life in surgery? Where were you when we needed the father to donate blood? Where were you when Ms. Bennett knelt on the floor begging you to answer your phone, while she signed her baby's death certificate? You were cutting cake for your mistress. I've seen countless irresponsible family members, but you are the worst man I have ever met. She grabbed her tray and stormed out, slamming the door. Ethan stared blankly at the floor, his face draining of all color. He picked up his phone and scrolled through dozens of missed calls and desperate messages from me. The last one read, "The baby has negative blood. The blood bank is empty. Only you can save them." The message was sent at 9 p.m. At that exact time, he had turned off his phone while Lila whispered lies in his ear. Panic overwhelmed him. He raced out of the room and grabbed a passing doctor. Where is Chloe? Tell me where she is. Chapter 6. Ethan searched for me frantically. He dialed my number endlessly, checked our old apartment, and visited every cafe I used to frequent, but he could not find me. I was sitting in the executive office at the top of Bennett Corporation, dressed in a tailored black business suit. I wore subtle makeup to cover my pale skin. I sipped black coffee and stared down at the tiny cars and crowds far below the floor-to-ceiling windows. The housewife Chloe, who lived only for her husband, was gone forever. The woman sitting here now was Chloe Bennett, the Bennett heiress. Liam, my brother, set a thick stack of documents on my desk. His eyes were filled with sorrow, but his support was unwavering. This is Hayes Corporation's quarterly financial report, plus details on all their ongoing projects. We can cut off their cash flow whenever you say the word. I flipped through the files. Many of those projects were ones I had planned and negotiated late into the night to help Ethan build his business. Now I would tear them down with my own hands. Not yet. I closed the files with a cold smile. Destroying everything at once is too merciful. I want him to watch everything he built slip away little by little. I want him to feel the same helpless despair I felt in the fire. Outside the ER, I pointed to one key project. Start with the Cloudview Bay Development Project. Ethan poured all his capital into this deal and signed a strict earn-out agreement. If this project fails, Hayes Corporation will be on the brink of Chapter 11 bankruptcy. Understood. Liam nodded. Ethan is searching for you everywhere. He even filed a missing person report with the police. A missing person report. I chuckled and pulled out another document. Then let's give him a chance to see me. 3 days later, Hayes Corporation hosted its annual corporate cocktail party. Ethan stood on stage as the host. His face was gaunt, his eyes bloodshot from exhaustion. But he forced a smile to deliver his speech. Lila clung to his side in a white gown, playing the delicate hostess for all the guests. Thank you all for joining us tonight. Ethan's speech was cut short when the grand ballroom doors swung wide open. Mr. Hayes, good evening. I stepped inside in 10-centimeter high heels, surrounded by bodyguards. Every eye in the room locked onto me. Ethan's champagne glass nearly slipped from his hand when he saw me. Chloe. Surprise flashed across his face. Quickly turning to rage, he rushed down from the stage and reached for my wrist. Where have you been these past few days? I've been looking for you non-stop. About the baby. I'm grieving too, but you can't just ghost me like this. His tone held a hint of hurt. As if he were the wronged party, I stepped aside to avoid his touch, and my bodyguards stepped forward to block him. Please keep your distance, Mr. Hayes. I stared at him, my expression cold and unfamiliar. Chloe, what is this? Ethan frowned and lowered his voice. Aware of the watching crowd, everyone is here. Let's talk about this at home. Don't embarrass Lila. Always Lila. I laughed aloud. Have you lost your sense of reality? Ethan. I'm not here to play house with you. I pulled documents from my handbag and tossed them at his feet. Pages scattered across the floor. These are signed divorce papers. And this is a court summons. Whispers erupted among the guests. Divorce. A court summons. Ethan picked up the papers, and his face turned livid when he read the charges. You're suing me for attempted murder. Have you completely lost your mind? I'm perfectly sane. I stepped forward and stared directly into his eyes. You locked me inside a burning building and left me with life-threatening injuries. You ignored our dying baby's cries for help, leading to their death. We will settle every last score. Lila stepped out from behind Ethan, tears spilling instantly. Chloe, how can you accuse Ethan like this? The fire was an accident. The baby was sickly from the start. None of this is his fault. You're ruining his reputation in front of everyone. She reached out to grab my sleeve, pretending to mediate. Stay away from me. I slapped her hard across the face. The sharp crack echoed through the silent ballroom. Lila's cheek swelled instantly, and a thin line of blood appeared at the corner of her mouth. Ethan's eyes widened in shock. Then he flew into a fury. Chloe, how dare you hit her? He raised his hand to strike me, but my bodyguard acted faster. Kicking his knee out from under him, Ethan crashed to his knees right on top of the scattered divorce papers. I looked down at the two of them with icy disdain. That slap is for my dead baby, Ethan Hayes. I said clearly for everyone to hear. I am no longer just your wife. I am the CEO of Bennett Corporation. Our game has only just begun. Chapter 7. CEO of Bennett Corporation. Ethan knelt frozen on the floor, oblivious to the pain in his knee. Guests whispered loudly around them. Bennett Corporation, the conglomerate that dominates real estate and logistics across the state. No wonder. Everyone heard the Bennett heiress ran away years ago for a poor young man. That man must be Ethan Hayes. What a fool. He threw away a total catch for a gold digger. The gossip stung Ethan like needles. He had always believed I was an orphan with no family, a Cinderella he had rescued. He had treated me with condescension throughout our marriage, convinced I could never survive without him. Now the truth crushed his pride. That can't be. Lila held her swollen cheek, her eyes filled with terror and jealousy. You're the Bennett heiress. Why did you wear cheap clothes and spend all your time cooking and cleaning? I glanced at her coldly. Because I loved him. I hid my identity for 5 years to protect his fragile ego, standing beside him through every hardship while he built his company. I turned back to Ethan, every trace of affection gone from my eyes. I gave you 5 chances. You are the one who threw away unimaginable fortune and your entire future into the fire. I turned to leave. Chloe, wait. Let me explain. Ethan struggled to stand and chase after me, but the bodyguards held him back. I never knew If I had known. If he had known the truth, he would have groveled at my feet instead of abandoning me for a fake fragile woman. That was the cruel irony. He never loved Mayhay, only cared about what I could give him. For the next month, Ethan lived in a nightmare. Bennett Corporation launched an all-out assault on Hayes Corporation. Banks cut off all loans, suppliers broke contracts, and business partners pulled out of every deal. The Cloudview Bay project collapsed completely due to cash flow failure, turning into an abandoned construction project. Hayes Corporation's stock prices plummeted day after day. Ethan spent every waking moment scrambling to save his company. I sat in my bright, spacious office and watched it all unfold. Ms. Bennett. Ethan has been kneeling outside our building for 3 hours. My executive assistant reported. Let him kneel. I kept working through my documents. Released Lila's medical records to every major media outlet. Private investigators had confirmed everything. Lila's supposed severe asthma and heart condition were complete fabrications. On the day of the fire, she had asked Ethan to carry her simply because her new shoes hurt her feet. The photos of her wearing an oxygen mask at the hospital were all staged. She had no illnesses at all. The story exploded across the internet instantly. Hashtags flooded X. Hayes Corporation CEO abandons pregnant wife for faking ill mistress. The truth behind the office fire. Despicable corporate scandal. Lila became a universal pariah. Universally dragged online. I finished my work as night fell and headed downstairs. Torrential rain poured from the sky. Ethan knelt on the pavement outside Bennett Corporation, soaked to the bone. Looking like a stray dog, he lit up when he saw me and scrambled across the wet ground to grab my pant leg. Chloe, I know I was wrong. Lila tricked me completely. He sobbed desperately. I saw the news about her fake illnesses. I never would have left you if I'd known. You're my wife. The only person I love. The only person you love. I kicked his hand away in disgust. Do you think empty apologies can bring our baby back? Can erase the pain I endured? Ethan stared blankly, then dropped to his knees and groveled on the wet concrete. I know I can never make it right. We can have another child. I'll spend the rest of my life making amends. Silence. My voice was sharp. You do not get to speak of our child. A scream cut through the rain. Lila appeared out of nowhere, disheveled and wildeed, wielding a kitchen knife. Chloe, you destroyed my life. I'll kill you. Look out. Ethan shouted. Before anyone could react, he threw himself in front of me. A sickening squelch echoed as the knife buried itself deep in his abdomen. Blood soaked his white shirt instantly. Lila screamed and ran away in terror. Ethan collapsed onto the rainy pavement. He looked up at me with a faint, relieved smile. Chloe, I saved you this time. Can you forgive me now? I held an umbrella over my head and stared down at his bleeding body, untouched by any emotion. The scene was nothing but absurdity. Ethan, I said calmly, do you think one stab wound can make up for a human life? This is nothing but self-serving martyrdom. I will never, ever forgive you. I turned and walked back into the building. Call an ambulance. Don't let him die too quickly. His desperate cries faded into the howling wind and rain. Chapter 8. Ethan survived the stabbing. The blade missed his vital organs, but it severely damaged one of his kidneys. Even after recovery, he would live with permanent disability. He stayed in the hospital for 2 weeks, and I never visited once. Nurses told me he called my name day and night, staring at the door while awake and crying in his sleep. Lila was arrested. She faced charges of aggravated assault and grand theft fraud for forging medical documents to steal large sums of money from Ethan. She received concurrent sentences and would spend decades doing hard labor behind bars. Word spread that she had lost her mind in the county jail, constantly screaming that she was Mrs. Hayes, and suffered harsh treatment from other inmates. 1 month later, Hayes Corporation officially filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy and was acquired by Bennett Corporation. I carried the acquisition contract and the divorce papers into Ethan's hospital room. He struggled to sit up and drink water, and his cup slipped and shattered on the floor when he saw me. Chloe, he was gaunt and haggard, his hair unkempt. A far cry from the powerful CEO he once was. Sign these documents. I laid the acquisition agreement and divorce papers in front of him. I will cover all your medical bills after you sign. This is the last kindness I will ever show you." Ethan picked up the pen with trembling hands, tears dripping onto the paper. "Can we ever go back to how things were? I dream of the baby every night. I dream of us when we first married." He looked up at me, begging. "I have nothing left now. All I have is you. Let me work for you. I'll be your driver, your servant. Anything." I met his pleading gaze with a cold heart. "Too little, too late. Your belated love means nothing now. The moment you locked that door, the moment you turned off your phone to celebrate, everything between us ended. Sign quickly. I have work to do." He saw the finality in my eyes and understood he had lost me forever. He signed his name on both documents in despair and collapsed back onto the bed, drained of all strength. "I wish you happiness," he whispered hoarsely. I gathered the papers and walked toward the door, pausing without turning around. "I do not wish you happiness, Ethan. I wish you a long life, a lonely life, and endless regret every single night." 3 years passed. Under my leadership, Bennett Corporation expanded its business overseas, and I became a renowned powerhouse CEO in the business world. I visited Maplewood Psychiatric Care Facility one day to inspect a charity project funded by Bennett Corporation. In a quiet corner of the courtyard, I spotted a familiar figure. It was Ethan. He sat in a wheelchair wearing faded patient clothes, a thin blanket draped over his legs. He had aged drastically, his hair streaked with gray. He held a tattered cloth doll in his arms and spoke softly to it. "Be good, little one. Daddy will tell you a story. This is Mommy's favorite flower. Let's pick one for her." A caretaker walked over inside. "This man has been here for 2 years. He used to be a wealthy CEO before his company failed and his health broke down. He talks to that doll every day, saying it's his child. When he has moments of clarity, he kneels and begs forgiveness to his wife and baby." "Do you know him, Ms. Bennett?" I pulled my gaze away and put on sunglasses to hide the faint emotion in my eyes. "No, I don't know him." I walked toward the luxury car waiting for me. The sun shone bright, and a gentle wind blew. My future was wide open and full of light. Ethan would spend the rest of his life trapped in the hell he had created for himself. Chapter 9. I drove out of the psychiatric facility gates, glancing in the rearview mirror one last time. I saw Ethan lift his head sharply, staring straight at my car's taillights. He struggled to stand from his wheelchair, and the cloth doll fell to the ground. "Chloe, wait for me." His hoarse shouts were carried away by the wind. Weak and miserable, he tumbled onto the dirt and crawled toward my car like a discarded stray animal. Caretakers rushed over to restrain him. I rolled up the car window, cutting off the sight and sound of my painful past. Soft music played inside the vehicle. My executive assistant handed me a file. "This is the latest report on Lila's situation in prison. She tried to commit suicide last week but was rescued. Her mental state is extremely unstable, and she lives in constant fear every day." I skimmed the document briefly. "Do not let her die. A long life of suffering is the greatest punishment for her." "Understood." The assistant hesitated, then held out an exquisite velvet box. "A Mr. Carter dropped this off earlier to congratulate you on the completion of your new project. Gideon Carter, my college senior, and a loyal business partner who had supported me quietly for 3 years. I opened the box to reveal a necklace. Its pendant was a phoenix rising from flames, a unique and elegant design. A short note lay inside. "Congratulations on your rebirth. Would you join me for dinner tonight?" I traced the phoenix pendant with my fingertip and smiled faintly. For 3 years, I had sealed my heart off, focusing solely on work. Gideon never crossed boundaries, only stood by my side gently, melting the ice around my heart little by little. Reply to him. Tell him I'll meet him at 7. At our usual spot. A weight lifted from my shoulders at last. Ethan and Lila were nothing more than rotten fragments I had cut out of my life. Scars remained, but my wounds had healed completely. I was no longer anyone's wife or possession. I was Chloe Bennett unapologetically, uniquely myself. Chapter 10. Final chapter. The restaurant lighting was warm and soft that night. Gideon sat across from me, cutting his steak with graceful, gentlemanly movements. He slid the neatly cut portion onto my plate, his eyes gentle like warm spring water. "Heard you visited the psychiatric facility today," he asked casually, though a hint of nervousness lingered in his tone. "I did." I took a bite of steak. The flavor was perfect. I saw an old acquaintance. Anne. There's nothing left to say. I lifted my wine glass and clinked it lightly against his. The glass chimed softly. "Trash belongs in the trash can, not in my life." Gideon stared at me for a moment, then broke into a bright smile that chased away the last traces of shadow in my heart. "Then, may I officially step into your life?" He looked at me with sincere, earnest eyes. I swirled the red wine in my glass, watching the liquid cling to the crystal sides. I once thought love meant reckless devotion and self-sacrifice, only to be broken completely. Now I understood what real love was. Two equal people, respecting each other, growing better side by side, never dragging each other into the mud. I set down my glass and smiled at him. "Plenty of people are waiting in line. You'll need to prove your sincerity." Gideon's face lit up with joy. "At your command, my queen." Far across the city, inside the rundown psychiatric facility, night had fallen. Ethan huddled on his cold bed, still clutching the dirty cloth doll tightly in his arms. Moonlight filtered through the barred window and fell across his tear-streaked face. He dreamed again. There was no fire, no Lila, only a warm home and a newborn baby. I held the child and smiled softly at him. "Ethan, look, our baby is smiling at you." He reached out to touch my face, but the vision shattered instantly. Flames consumed everything, my desperate eyes and our baby's pale blue face flashed before him, over and over. "No, don't leave me." Ethan jolted awake and fell off the bed. Silence surrounded him, broken only by the distant mad laughter of other patients. He lay on the cold floor, staring at his empty hands, and let out a raw, agonized howl like a wounded beast trapped forever in its pain. He would spend every remaining day drowning in endless regret. That was his fate. My story, however, was only just beginning.